What's up, guys? Saf here on SuperSaf Speaks, and welcome to episode number 9 of the podcast with myself, your host, Saf.
And Thunder E, your co-host.
We are back to normal and lots to talk about today. Huawei has announced their Mate X2, latest foldable device. We have the Hyundai IONIC 5, all-electric vehicle, which is looking super promising. Great to see some competition here. Then there's been lots of leaks. We've got the Google Pixel 5a leaked, the initial leak of that. Then we have the AirPods 3. These are looking very exciting and definitely got a lot to talk about there. But we've also had some leaked benchmarks of the M1X, so the latest chip from Apple. And finally, we're just going to be talking about Mars because we like talking about Mars here. So NASA's Perseverance Rover, it's just mind-blowing. I love talking about Mars. Don't you, E?
Absolutely, man. We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
We'll get to that.
Bubbling inside, yeah.
Yeah, it's good to have you back. You had a week off. How was your week off?
My week off from the podcast was a bit saddening. I felt like I was left out, you know. I
Really?
felt like I wasn't part of the fun. Yeah,
Oh,
I mean,
man.
it's always good to do the show. So, but it was good to have Marquez on though, and get his insights on a few things, and you got him to answer a few questions. So that was fun.
Yeah, that was good. A lot of people enjoyed it. If you've not heard the podcast with Marquez, the first guest that we've had on the show, that will be linked. So just check out the previous episode. We're gonna have more guests as well coming. Not that we're getting bored of E. He's a great co-host. Maybe we can do a three-way sometime. I know that sounds really weird now that I just kind of heard it out loud. But maybe we can have a guest, but I'm not sure how that's gonna work. Like, that's gonna be too much going on because we're doing it remotely. But maybe we'll do that.
All right, we'll see.
Cool. All right, so the Huawei Mate X2. Let me just kind of quickly run down what the specifications are. So it is a foldable from Huawei. It's an inner foldable, not an outer foldable like we've had previously from Huawei. 6.45-inch exterior display, 8-inch OLED main display, which actually folds open. Both have a 90 Hz refresh rate. We've got a quad camera setup, primary, ultra-wide, 2 telephoto cameras, 3 times as well as 10 times. Kirin 9000 5G chipset, 8 GB of RAM, 256 or 512 GB of storage, 4500 mAh battery with 55 watts supercharge, and the price is going to be starting from around 1800 yuan, which works out to be around £2,000 here in the UK, but when we convert to dollars, we're looking at around $2,700, $2,800. So yeah, I've done a quick sort of summary because they only had the event in Chinese. So we had Richard Yu doing the event in Chinese. So I thought, let me put together a summary of everything. That video is there if you want to see it on the main channel. Okay, so the first thing I want to kind of talk about is the fact that Huawei has now opted to go for the inner fold, the innie, shall we say, rather than the outie.
Yeah.
Now, from the very beginning, like, there was this whole debate, what is the better foldable? Now, it was nice to see Huawei go for something different, but the issue has always been durability. I remember I was using the Mate XS for a short time, and, because it's a plastic display, you put it down at the table, in and out of your pocket, you are going to get it scratched, like, very easily. Yeah. That just goes without saying. And that just didn't seem like a practical solution, whereas what Samsung have always had with the Fold 2 is you've got glass on the outside and the display, which, they call Glastic, but still has a plastic sheet on top of it, is always protected when you're not using it. So the phone's going to be closed. It's going to be protected. When you've got it open, I mean, unless you've got, razor nails, you'll be fine. So one of the other things that's coming from a lot of the feedback is they've just copied Samsung. And, yes, I mean, it looks very much like the Samsung. What do you think?
I think, look, if it's better, we might as well go with it. But I think they've also done a few things. The front display is wider than the Samsung's. Yeah. It also has a built-in kickstand, which I actually kind of like. Especially
that's not built in. That's like an accessory that comes with it, which you can snap on, as far as I
thank you. But it looked like I saw an image because it had the same color as the as a device. So yeah.
So it's something that kind of snaps on. It's an accessory that's included.
Accessory. You've got periscopic zoom though, which is nice on the device.
More camera options. Yep.
More camera options, except slightly less camera options where there's no internal internal camera within the larger display.
So on the Fold 2 from Samsung, when you open up the display and you have the larger display, there's a camera there as well. So if you're doing conference calls or anything like that, then you can use the larger display. You're not going to be able to do this on the Huawei because there is no camera. So although it looks cleaner and it's like, no cutout, you are going to lose that functionality. So it depends on how important that is to you.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's one of those things where I'm glad that Huawei is still doing stuff within that realm. The pricing and all that stuff, I will forgive them for now just because I'm happy they put something out. Honestly.
I mean, it's nice to see the way they've done it is the design is super interesting because it kind of tapers off and it's 4.4 millimeters on its thinnest point. And when the device does close, it's kind of like a diagonal. It's not much of a gap, but it kind of goes at a bit of an angle. So this way you get a much more flat close, whereas the Samsung, it's not completely flat. So it gives you an overall thinner profile when you're using it when it's closed. Because let's be honest, the Fold 2 is a thick boy when it's closed, right? It's much thicker than you'd normally find on a normal smartphone. Huawei's trying to aim to make it more of a thinner overall device when it's closed, and I do quite like that. I like how they've done the hinge. They've also done this sort of teardrop, so that gives you less of a direct crease, but it does give you a bit of a bump. So there's a compromise there, but I think the competition is definitely good to see. I think foldables are the future, and the more we see, the better it is. They didn't talk about international availability, obviously, and they were talking about Harmony OS coming. So it doesn't look like we're going to be getting it anytime soon anyway. So it looks like it's just with China, but regardless, nice to see.
Yeah, I definitely agree. The only thing is, should the kernel upgrade to the Mate X2 or should he keep his Z Fold 2? That's the question he's asking.
The question is, what do his wives use for video calling? If they use any of the Google services, then it's not going to be any use. Oh man. Anyway, so that's the Mate X2. It looks interesting. I mean, the year's already starting to build up. We've had a decent amount of new smartphones, and it's gonna start getting very, very hectic from next month. There's lots of rumored releases. Now, on the topic of competition, we like seeing competition, and it looks like in the electric vehicle space, there hasn't been any serious competition, but it looks like Hyundai is bringing some serious competition to Tesla with the IONIC 5. Now I'm going to run down some of the features that we've got on the IONIC 5. So we've got high-speed charging available, which will take you from 10 to 80% in 18 minutes. We've got a range of around 290 miles. 0 to 60 in around 5.3 seconds. And there's a vehicle to load feature, VL2, which allows you to use the car to charge other devices. So for instance, if you've got camping equipment or something, you're going to be able to do that. There's a sliding console. The interior looks super good. 44-inch head-up display. There's also an option for a solar roof, which is going to let you charge. I mean, it's not going to charge the device up, but the car up completely, but it's going to allow you to get a bit of power there from the roof. And the Project 45, which is kind of like the high spec, is going to be coming in at around £45,000. That puts it almost directly in competition with the base model Tesla Model 3. So Tesla's been there, and there's really not been much in the way of competition at that range. Something that can really give you something viable for your money. And the design's quite unique. I am liking the design. What do you think, He?
Oh, it's so much better. You know where I stand with Tesla design. The whole thing with the sliding console, I'm just can you clarify? Is it the second screen that slides over? I'm a bit confused.
No. So it's the console. So basically, the center console on the right hand side of the driver that can go forward and back, and then it's got like a flat base. So you've got plenty of room there for activities. But yeah, it's got a nice capacity. The seats do go down, so it's
this is more like in tune to the Model Y. It's just a bit of like a hatchback slash
yeah, it's like an
SUV-ish type
SUV.
look.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the design. I like the competition. This is something that's been said, was said years ago. They said electrics will take full force in 2020, 2021. And I think this would have happened last year. But 2020, we all know
Obviously,
what happened
things-
in 2020.
things have been delayed.
Things change. But it's good to see the competition out. We've seen our friends like Tommy check out the Polestar 2. We now have Hyundai, which is a bigger brand company coming out. And we in the US, we know that we've got GM, we've got Chrysler, we've got all these different companies coming out, which again, competition is good. To me, what that does for Tesla is Tesla now can fine tune the things they do well and really focus on that. One of those things that nobody else has done yet is software updates. They are really good at that. They're really good at improving existing vehicles to push it forward. So I'm excited. I'm excited for it.
But I think Tesla, the biggest advantage Tesla has is the charging network, right? The supercharging network is just not matched. Now, with the IONIC 5, yes, it can do from 10 to 80% in 18 minutes, but you're going to need a fast charger for that. Where are you going to find these fast chargers? I mean, there's not too many details around that. Now, I have driven the Hyundai IONIC plug-in hybrid. I had that for a few weeks last year, and I did enjoy driving it. It was a very smooth drive. A lot of tech inside it. You did have like auto steer, and you had a few features. One of my favorite features was something that I don't have on my Tesla, is if you're on a traffic light and you start daydreaming, or maybe you're changing your music and the guy in front of you starts moving ahead, it will alert you. And I was just like,
oh, okay.
Such a simple thing, but I was like, I love this, right? But yeah, it was kind of teched up, but that was kind of like a more of a traditional design. This looks super modern and it's different. It's not something that we've like kind of seen before. So I'm quite liking it. I like the concept of the solar roof. Now this is apparently the Project 45 model, which is going to be the model that's initially going to be available. I believe it's later on in 2021 or maybe 2022. Details again are very limited at this point in terms of the whole package. I'm definitely going to be trying to drive it. I'll be able to plug it in at home, but it'll be interesting to see what the sort of longer term charging situation is going to be for the faster charging. But yeah, I mean, exciting times in the space of EVs right now for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Lots of cars. It'll be fun. It'll be fun to check them out, and yeah, can't wait to see all those social posts that you decide to create for it.
I mean, there was all these rumors about Apple kind of partnering with Hyundai for the Apple car. I wonder what that's going to do to the rumor mill now that we've actually seen something solid from Hyundai.
Well, it's funny though, because Apple was the first one. I'm sorry, Hyundai was the first company, and then there was talk with Kia. There's rumors about Kia, and then it moved to somebody else, a Japanese company. I can't remember. It was Mazda or Mitsubishi. I can't remember who. But it looks like those talks have broken down, and this is just rumor and my own conjecture. Is I think, at least from what I saw with the Japanese company breakdown, is that Apple wanted more control over that, which is something they do like, because they like to make things very eco-friendly for their ecosystem. So maybe that's something that happened, and maybe Hyundai was Hyundai had this in the works and thought, okay, maybe they'll add some Apple elements, and Apple's like, no, we want to do our own thing. So.
Yeah, but I mean, we'll see. But I mean, you know what, the EV space right now is super exciting. Tesla's been ahead for so long. So yeah, let's see what else comes up. Now, moving on, like there's been a lot of leaks over the past couple of weeks. That kind of rhymed. Lots of leaks over the past couple of weeks. Anyway, the first one we're going to talk about is the Google Pixel 5a. Now, the Google Pixel 4a, one of my favorite smartphones last year, just because of the competitive price point that it came in at. Such an easy smartphone to recommend. Like, people are like, what? I've got 300, 400 pounds or dollars. What should I go for? And it's like Pixel 4a, hands down. Easy recommendation. Pixel 5a. Now, this leak comes from very reputable leaker on Leaks, who has, been right again and again, running through some of the specifications. I mean, the design looks very, very similar to the Google Pixel 4a. Not different much at all. We've got that unibody plastic design with the fingerprint scan at the back. 6.2-inch OLED display, full HD resolution. And we've got a dual camera setup at the back though, so that's kind of similar to the Pixel 4a 5G. Likely to have a primary camera as well as an ultra-wide camera. Single punch out for the selfie camera. A 3.5mm headphone jack, which would be awesome. And stereo speakers. So that's kind of like the base information that we have about it right now. So it kind of looks like, it was a little bit confusing last year because we had the Pixel 4a and then we had the Pixel 4a 5G. This kind of seems like, it's like the Pixel 4a 5G A, should we say, right?
I mean, like but isn't this pretty much the Pixel 5 in just the 4a body?
Yeah, I mean, you could put it that way, but then the 4a 5G kind of seemed like that as well. It seemed like the Pixel 5, but a lighter version, so should we say? So it's kind of getting confusing on that side. But I mean, nevertheless, I mean, if they can kind of bring this in at a similar price point to what we had the Google Pixel 4a at last year, so talking around 350.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's gonna be promising, especially if they can bring two cameras at that price. And we're not talking cheapo random cameras. This is going to be Google
macro
processing. Yeah, let's not go to the macro cameras. We're going to have a whole rant about that otherwise. But yeah, I mean, if we're talking Google processing, Pixel processing at that price with those two cameras, I mean, sure, it's design wise, it's nothing drastic. Yes, the display does have a bit of a chin. The bezels are not going to be as small as say the Pixel 5, but I mean, it's looking promising.
No, I mean, it is. I'm not the biggest Pixel fan out there. Although the 4A and the 4A, like not 4A 5G, I mean, both of them, but the 4A line to me was one that I really liked. The 5, I really wasn't impressed with it. And I think going that way with the 5A, absolutely perfect. I really hope, honestly, they should do more colors. Than just black.
Yeah,
and I get it. I get it that we all know that black is the one that sells the most. But I think just on the advertising spectrum, it's more enticing to have the colors to bring people over, and then they buy black.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. But I think when it comes to a lower price device, for them, I think production as well, like they can offer to do a bit more funky colors for the Pixel 5, which is coming in at around 600. But when you're looking at something that's just you go out and buy it, 350, Bob's your uncle, Abdul's your uncle, whoever your uncle is, it's easy as that.
No, I mean, I do hear you, except they don't sell that many Pixel 5s in the first place. So honestly, I would rather. I mean, if we do the math operations wise, it probably makes more sense to actually add the colors, which will only cost them an extra, let's call it 25 cents per color in terms of volume on the 4A, which sells more, than on the larger one that doesn't sell much. Because remember last year, what happened to the 5 got decimated by the FE, and that had colors.
Hey, I mean, it appears more striking, and as you were saying in marketing, I mean, it keeps debranding business. It's like, hey, you've got a plain black device, let's mix it up. So swoop in, there we go. But we'll see. I mean, I'm excited. I think it's a very easy smartphone to recommend, especially at that price, because we have a lot of smartphones come in at that price. But you kind of like, will the software be good? Oh, it's going to have this, that. I mean, with the Google ones, it's going to have good cameras for that price. It's an easy one. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to it. Now, we've also had another big leak, and this one's quite exciting. AirPods 3. So, having a look at the leaks, these actually come from 52 Audio, and we've seen a few images and a bit of info. Now, generally, they look quite similar to the AirPods Pro. So what I would say is they're kind of in between the AirPods 2 and the AirPods Pro. So that's what it's kind of looking like, a progression there. Not all the way to the AirPods Pro, but we've got certain elements such as the stems are now much shorter. We've also got some vents which are there to equalize the pressure when you've been listening to them for some time. And it seems like we've got ear tips, but the ear tips don't seem like you'd have to use them. It seems like you'll be able to use them without those ear tips. Now, one of the things with the AirPods 2, for me personally, and the AirPods 1 as well, is that they don't stay in my ears. They just fall straight out, right?
Yeah,
and then the
yeah.
AirPods Pro came along, and they are better. I mean, they're not perfect, but they're better. They kind of sit inside your ear. But one of the things I found, which is interesting, is I've spoken to a few people. Jenna Izarik is one of them, who is absolutely fine with the AirPods 2, but the AirPods Pro don't stay in the ears, right? And she's not the only one, because there's a few other people who I've spoken to.
You're absolutely right. Boy Femme, same thing. She uses the original AirPods. She cannot use the Pros because they just literally fall out completely.
So I mean, it looks like this is going to be the best of both worlds in a sense, because if you don't want those inner ear tips, they'll probably have a similar sort of design and a fit overall, apart from the shorter stems, to the original AirPods and the AirPods 2. So that should be quite good. Rumored to come in at around $150. So they're not going to have the active noise cancellation, which obviously makes the pros the pros. But there are rumors that we might have spatial audio. So for those of you who don't know, spatial audio is the ability for the AirPods to kind of track where your head is in terms of the orientation. So if you're listening to something, say in your iPad, and you turn your head, then it's still going to sound like the audio is coming from that direction, right? So it kind of gives you that more immersive experience. And this is technically a pro feature, but it might be coming to the AirPods 3. So that's quite interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it is, but I mean, most of that stuff is mostly software. How it's done is mostly software, so it's easier for them to make that transition. And I don't think spatial audio is based on any gyroscope technology, because there's none on the Pro 3s. So if they're using, it could be something they could actually be using similar drivers to the Pro 3s, because they have a lot. They've sold many. The price is also cheaper. It makes sense to just kind of put in this one while they develop a new one for the Pro, for the Pro series when it comes out.
I mean, it's been about 2 years since we had the AirPods 2, they are still some of the, if not the most, the best-selling wireless earphones in the world, right? People buy those, and one of those things is that price point, right? If you're an Apple user and you want something that's just going to work straight out of the box and you don't have to worry about it, $150, boom. Now that we've got this upgrade, especially with those vents and little things, I think those little updates will really help. We've not got any information about things like battery life, but I think they're going to be just flying off the shelves, definitely.
Oh yeah,
March is the rumored time, so we're just looking a few weeks away. But yeah, exciting.
Yeah, March is going to become the new December.
It seems like it.
New October. Sorry.
Yeah. I'm excited. I'm excited to check them out. I'll see if they stay in my ears or not. But obviously, we'll be bringing them onto the channels. We'll do some comparisons versus, the Galaxy Buds Pro, the Apple AirPods Pro. But I just know they're going to be super, super popular.
Absolutely.
Okay, so another leak that we've also had on the Apple side of things. I mean, these are actually some leaked benchmarks for what is potentially going to be the Apple M1X. Now, we've already seen the success of the M1 chips that we've currently had, and how they've just been very efficient and just, very high performing. The M1X is set to come with 12 CPU cores. So that will be featuring 8 high performance Firestorm cores and 4 efficient Ice Storm cores. Now, if we compare this to the original M1 chip, which had 8 cores in total, this should be pretty good. Now, I'm not too technical when it comes to, benchmarks and things like that. What are your thoughts about this?
Just to plug in another YouTuber who's done some really good video on this, definitely go check out Matthew Moniz. He actually did a video on comparable to PC benchmarks as well, so to give you a good idea of where they stand. And a rough summary, this pretty much compares to the same performance, actually beats out the 4900H from AMD laptop processor from last year, which is truly impressive because that was like a mind changer for like us in the PC space. We're like, this can still do 10-hour battery life, and then we can also play Call of Duty. Sign me up, right? So
Yeah.
basically, even if it matches that or beats it, whichever one it is, right? We don't know where this benchmarks, if they're legit or not legit. But if it comes close to that, then you have something that has just raw power, but then you add in the efficiency that the M1 chip does, and then you're looking at raw power with more efficiency. So it may not have the 17-hour battery life. It may drop down to 15 or 13, but please,
Yeah.
at that point you're happy, right? But what's scary about this is that this is also tied to some rumors I've seen for the M2 chipset, which is supposed to have 32 cores, both CPU and GPU, which should go into much higher end MacBooks, MacBook Pros, as well as also then your iMacs, and then your what's the Mac Pro.
The Mac Pro, yes.
I was thinking about the cylinder
It's
dustbin.
like, what is this? What is this?
Sorry, I was like, oh, my bad.
Yeah.
But it's a really scary, interesting proposition because on the one end, Apple has literally changed the game in all sense of the words. On the other hand, AMD and Intel have to look at different ways. Like AMD already has started doing that. They've been doing that process for years. So they're on their way. They're going to a different path. But Intel is literally the one that is sitting behind. Now, I know they're doing some stuff, but here's the funny part with Intel. From some of the very early league benchmarks I've seen, they're going to come out with something good. The problem is it's going to take them either the end of this year or early next year, which if it was just against Apple, it would have been fine. Actually, as much as people talk about it, that market share does not affect Intel. The biggest problem is that while they're battling Apple, AMD's on the other side going just dicing them up. So
yeah, so they kind of like stuck in the middle and just getting pushed around by Apple and AMD. Oh, man, I mean it's an interesting time in this space, isn't it? Like I'm very excited to see because as anybody who's watching the video podcast, I use the 16-inch MacBook Pro. I do like it. I mean, I use a PC for my desktop, but when it comes to the laptop, I do like using the MacBook Pro, and I'm super excited to see when we do get the upgrade of this and how that will be, especially when it comes to efficiency and performance, that combination. Because when I was trying the MacBook Air, the M1, I mean, I was impressed. I was very, very impressed.
Yeah, I mean, it's an impressive slate. So right now, BoardFem is doing a video on the Mac Mini because for her, it's changing some of her workflow. She normally uses like an iMac, and she's like, man. She's like, how much is this again? I'm like, yeah, it starts at $699. It's like I bought this at like $1,500 when it came out. Her iMac. So like just the mental proposition. And just before we even move on quickly, one thing I do like about this from the Apple perspective is for the very first time ever in Apple's history, I'm not even counting the iPhone SE because iPhone SE was old. It's old in new body. Minus the processor, but everything else was old in that device. The M1 chip MacBook, the M1 chip Mac Mini, especially the Mac Mini, basically sums the first time that Apple has given its customers, to me at least, a proper cost advantage over everyone else. Because if you think about when Jaime even said, he's like, I spent $5,000 on getting this MacBook, the 16-inch. And then he's like, this is the Air at $1,000 and it destroys it. That to me was the best thing I think Apple has ever done for its customers. They're giving them a true advantage of saying, we built it, it's better, it's faster. We could easily have charged you the same $5,000.
Yep.
But we didn't. And that's great. I think that's
this is interesting because I actually want to kind of go off topic and address this because I've been accused of being an Apple fanboy many times, as I've been accused of being a Samsung fanboy. But one of the things that keeps coming up is Saf, you're such an Apple fanboy, right? And I want to talk about this, right? Because a lot of people say that I was more critical of Apple previously. And I was, because there was a lot of things that I didn't like about what Apple was doing. I mean, let's rewind back to the iPhone 6 and the iPhone 6s, right? I was not a fan of those antenna bands and that design. This is the time when we had sleek looking devices like the HTC 1M8,
Yes.
right?
Oh,
Such a
yes,
sweet,
that-
and the way they had the antenna, and then we had, in my opinion, which was just like, it just looked cartoony, where we just had these thick white antenna bands on this gold and this rose gold iPhone, and I was just like, okay, design wise it's not good, right? That was like the first. But then there was also other things, like they still had a 720p front facing camera and I used to complain about it in my camera comparisons all the time. They never had stereo recording, so when you had video you didn't have stereo recording. But now let's fast forward, right? And I think things really started changing for me personally, with my relationship with Apple, should we say. I'm getting kind of deep here. I think from the iPhone 10, things really started changing, because I'm like, okay, now we've got a device here which, really does stand up. It's got an excellent design. How many smartphones just went and completely ripped off the notch, right? Okay, to a point where people kind of like have started hating on the notch. But I mean, they were the first ones to do the almost bezel-less design, right? Because at that time we had the top and bottom strips, and hey, he's coming up. But I mean, it was interesting to see that change. But what I've kind of liked is now, for instance, I was talking about the 720p front-facing camera and how it wasn't that good, and I was talking about the mono audio recording on video. Right now, I think pretty much any expert that you ask when it comes to video on a smartphone, I'm going to ask you, I know you're an Android guy mostly, video on a smartphone.
I mean, iPhone.
There you go, right? So this is the thing. I think it's a case of, I always go into this, it's like, I'm a fan of technology, and I like to see technology progressing. And when we had the butterfly keyboards, loads of people hated them, understandably so. But then we went back to scissor switches, and I mean, Apple may not admit it. Granted, they may not admit their mistakes, but they have, I would say, recently kind of taken a different approach to their products. With the likes of the M1 chips, and just bringing a lot of these improvements that a lot of people actually want.
Oh yeah, I absolutely agree. I think, put it this way, right? As people have called you an Apple fanboy, I've been called an Apple hater, and honestly, yes, I was. I won't even deny it. It's a whole different case entirely.
Just put his hands up.
Yeah, I'm guilty as charged, because for me, early on, they made a lot of mistakes, I think. But I think they also did not give, going back to how I said, a value. To me, they did not give consumers the best value. And that's the part that always annoys me with any brand. Doesn't matter who it is. You can charge as much as you want, as long as the value is in the charge. And I never felt Apple products give you that value until now. Until I'll say the last two iPhones, yeah. The iPhone 12 especially really hit the mark. There's also value range in the iPhones as well. I like the fact they did the SE. I also like the fact that I never liked the MacBooks until the M1. I mean, I still won't use it, but I've never liked a MacBook because it was an overpowered, slow PC. That was always my problem. And now it's completely great. So I think people always have to look at it, especially when you reference to you that you being an Apple fan. But you're more balanced than most people would care to admit. The fact that, look, you have to look at it for the points that the companies are delivering. And in this case, I mean, I'm a PC user, but I can admit that, look, they're doing something good. They're doing something that I hope my PC guys copy.
This is the thing, though. Technology is, we love technology, and we were talking about like the things when Apple does things wrong. I mean, we're there to criticize. I mean, them not including the charger out of the box. If you go back and watch my review of the iPhone, my argument there, and I spent like a good 5 minutes talking about this, was okay. So Apple, sure, you don't include the charger. You claim it's to save on carbon emissions, etc. But the charger you include is the cable you include is a USB Type-C cable, okay? And you've introduced this new technology, which is MagSafe. If you want to use MagSafe, you're going to need a new charger. You can't use your old charger, right? So, okay, now you have to go and buy this separately. And you have to buy the MagSafe. Now, if you total all of that up, how much carbon emissions have you done in addition to that, right? To what you have supposedly saved. And, I was there to criticize it. The display is another thing where, I mean, the iPhone display, it's a bright, nice display. Does it compete with the likes of the S21 Ultra? No chance. You ask anybody and they'll tell you that the S21 Ultra just has an overall better display because of that higher refresh rate. It's just smoother, and you just know that the difference there. So when Apple does not, when they don't meet the mark, we will be there to criticize them, right? And hopefully they will improve. But when they do things good, hey, you got to give credit where it's due.
That's right, and that's the end of the testimonial.
Yeah, okay. I'm not going to go into this whole fanboy thing too much, but anyway, Mars.
Let's save that for.
I want to talk about Mars because this is something that I know it's not maybe interesting because a lot of the listeners love the whole space exploration thing, and myself and we are super into space, right? And I'm so excited about it, and it just fascinates me. And even when we had Marquez on the channel, went off to a conversation about Mars out of nowhere. So, it's such a breakthrough having the NASA Perseverance Rover land successfully on Mars and seeing that footage. If you haven't seen it already and you're into space somewhat,
so good.
Watch the video of the landing of the Perseverance rover on Mars. It gave me goosebumps, man. It was just, wow.
Dude, I think for me, one of the most exciting things about watching that, and my buddy Sam sent me a clip of the animation so you could see the whole process. Because, of course, they don't have a camera crew down on Mars filming everything. Just to show you how, other things happen around it. But what I loved about it, forget the landing for a second, is the fact that we watched that in high definition. Right, it's not like it was not in like black and white color. It wasn't in low. Like we got a high res video, even if it was upscale, right? But think about it; it looked really clear and crisp. Where you were able to see. To me, what was interesting is the fact that, I'm not trying to cast anything on anyone, but when I watched it, I started thinking of people who talk about flat Earth and. They don't really talk about other planets.
People are still there for some reason.
I'm not going there, but it's looking at the fact that like this landed in another planet and the landscape does not remotely look anything. Like anywhere on this planet. The closest place is probably in Utah.
Utah comes close. I was gonna say.
Yeah, no, it does come close. But watching the atmosphere coming down, you're going. There's no you can tell it's got a thin atmosphere, just by the way the parachute was coming down. You're like, that is really fast. It should not be that quick.
This is the thing, because a lot of people kind of what fascinates me is, so I've got some facts down here, right? So it's. At this point right now, it's about 470 million kilometers away. Mars is right now. So the rover's traveled over 6 months. And then it's entering the atmosphere at around 19,000 kilometers an hour, right? So the amount of heat buildup on there is crazy. And that's why it's got the heat shield, which it let it go. But then you got to think that the atmosphere is so thin compared to Earth. You can't just slow down, right? That parachute is the largest parachute deployed anywhere outside of Earth, right? Just to be able to slow it down to a point where it's not going to crash. And I believe around half the space shuttles that have gone to Mars have failed, right?
Oh, yeah.
And
it's just 50%.
Yeah, 50% failure rate. So they call it the 7 minutes of terror, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't have direct communication. Because the distance that Mars is at, radio waves and communication, any sort of feed takes around 11 minutes one way, right? So if he was on Mars right now and I message him, it'd take him 11 minutes to get to him, and then it'll take when he replied, it'd take about 3 hours for me to reply back because I don't check my phone. But that's a different story. But just the fact that you can't fix something real time while it's happening. No, you kind of have to program all of this in advance, and it had to kind of look at the best place to land. It's just fascinating.
Dude, that it's not okay. You move to that, right? This is like straight out of sci-fi movies where you have a parachute and then it hovers above, and then it lowers the rover, which is the size of a small car. So basically, let's call it like a Honda Civic, and it drops a Honda Civic on a sky crane, and then it flies off. I'm like, you guys basically, I mean, the engineering here was literally, I think they literally just went, you know what, we've got a problem, it's tough. Let's just go sci-fi on this. We're going to fire a parachute, then we're going to hover in the air, just blast some rockets, and then we'll just drop this thing down. And I'm like, whoever thought about this was like, I mean, it was ballsy. It was great. And just to put, pushing this point, a lot of people ask, like, why should we go to Mars? Like, why when we have a planet here? Now, one thing people have to remember is that a lot of the technology we use today have come from the space program, because when you force people to think outside the box, which is what it does all the time, it teaches you, how do I make this? Velcro came from space program. Velcro
GPS.
we use on it.
I mean, right now, everybody that's got a smartphone pretty much throughout the world has GPS, and yes, Facebook can use that to track you, but apart from that, it's so useful having that. Just being able to. I remember when used to have to drive and trying to figure out the route to somewhere. Now it's just like you switch on your phone, boom, you've got the route there. And again, GPS is thanks to space exploration. That's kind of where the technology has come from. So yeah, 100%. We need to be doing more there, and just seeing that success of the. I mean, I remember I was just tweeting about it, and the first image that actually dropped was this black and white image, and people were like kind of saying, we've got iPhones, and why is this potato camera? You have to remember that transmission from there back to here takes time. So far they've already captured over 30 gigs worth of data, and that's roughly it's like, I don't know how many images it's taken, like 23,000 images that it's taken, and then it's going to beam all of these back to Earth. Remember, with that delay between Mars and Earth, it takes time for all of this data to come. Now that we've got it, I mean, you have to be patient. Like, seeing that video, I definitely recommend. Again, I want to mention it again. If you're even remotely into space exploration, then watch that video. It will rise the hairs at the back of your neck. It's just so amazing to see.
I mean, one thing to add to that is the fact that, like, what people don't understand is that I used to think that too. It's like, we can put our cell phones in there. Is that you need radioactive shielding, because when you're going through space, you're being bombarded by all sorts of different types of radiation. You don't have the atmosphere to protect you from that radiation. So you need everything to be shielded, which means a different set of engineering. You can't just throw in you can't just throw in a 108 megapixel camera, in there. You got to throw in something that fits into what your design schematics can work to shield it, to ensure that it works.
CMOS sensors came from space exploration as well. So there we go. So the sensors that we've got on cameras right now as well, because that's something that they had to develop to be able to take high resolution images out in space, right? So that's, again, another advancement that's come from space exploration. All for space exploration. More needs to be spent. I was looking at how much the US spends on space compared to how much they spend on their military operations, which is like 600 billion. So it's not even a fraction of that. So yeah, let's spend some more. Let's spend less on killing people, and let's spend more on exploring space. Absolutely.
We did have a question from a fan.
We did. Speaking of space exploration, we had the user No Time to Watch ask an interesting question. Now, this is kind of going into the sci-fi territory here, but they've asked, do you think they could possibly find raw materials on Mars like vibranium? So we've got a Marvel reference here that could possibly accelerate tech here on Earth. That is a very interesting question. Now, obviously, it's a little bit out there, but yeah, I mean, that's something exciting, because again, we've talked about how much advancements we've had in technology thanks to space exploration, but we are exploring a new world essentially. That is Mars.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think the question isn't far-fetched. Maybe not vibranium fetched, but it isn't far-fetched in the sense that, for instance, over the last couple of years, if you've noticed, they've been talking about graphene and how that will change battery technology, how it will change a lot of things. And adaptation is slow just because there's certain properties of graphene that are just not there. What if we find graphene naturally occurring because of the current conditions in Mars? And then you're able to just build better batteries already from that, right? Or you find, a different composition for chemicals. So, you can actually create plastics directly instead of getting crude oil. There's certain things that you can find. Like, we don't know what it is.
We just don't know. I mean, there's so much to discover and find out. And obviously, the Perseverance Rover is going to be trying to find if there was any early signs of life that might have occurred on Mars as well.
Yeah, I think we did see some life though, right? I mean, you shared an image of something Perseverance actually found.
Yeah. There was a sneaky Martian on on the surface, just kind of popping out from the side. I'll just check out my Twitter if you want to see that. But yeah, man, exciting times for Mars right now. I'm looking forward to some of the other projects that are coming out. There's going to be a drone that's going to be going to Titan, but it's going to take like 15 years to get there. But I think I forgot what the project was called.
But speaking of drones though, Qualcomm is powering the drone that's on Mars, this mission, on the rover. On Mars, on the rover. So they're going to actually have an actual drone that will give us aerial shots. So, I mean, the stuff that we use now is going to be taken to the next extreme. I mean, like, whoever is coding the requirements to fly that drone must be the first person to fly a drone on another planet that is 6 million miles away.
And Qualcomm has tech inside there. Why are they not shouting about this from the top of the rooftops? You know what I mean?
I have no idea. I mean, like,
Qualcomm, if you're listening, you need to be talking about this more, because that's insane. Having your technology on another planet. You know what I mean? It's just like, not only are we like excelling here on Earth, but we've got our tech on Mars. I mean, that's come on, like, just employ me and E to do your marketing for you. We'll do a good job. We promise.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, call me later. I'll sort out the fees.
But yeah, very exciting times for space exploration. We left this towards the end because we know not everybody's going to be super interested in it. But if you've made it here to the end, then we absolutely love you. And, we will explore space together someday. And that's all we have time for. Really hope you enjoyed this episode. We would try to mix things up. Do get involved. Drop some comments on the socials. SuperSaf Speaks on Twitter, on Instagram. Obviously, there's a YouTube channel as well. We love hearing some suggestions from you guys, getting you guys involved. If you're listening on Apple Podcast, then do drop a rating. That's always appreciated. And we will see you next week with another episode. Also, drop some suggestions for who you'd like to see, other guests on the channel after we've had Marquez. This is Saf on SuperSaf Speaks with my co-host
Thunder E from Borderwork.
And we'll see you next time.